is kind of consciousness. It's like the same, you know, it's creation, it's awareness, it's aware of, you know, external and your internal. And it's all about giving more control. I launched a course called the Inner Dojo. I'm looking at doing something similar, whether or not I replicate the course or I kind of simplify the course. And then for me, I want to give people a platform somewhere that they can, you know, they can really, you know, share their kind of their experiences, their thoughts, but like just like a community and collaborate as well. Because I know just so many of us are now like kind of, we're online, we're looking for somewhere to share, but everyone's sharing something different. Everyone's sharing something of their own experiences when that's what everyone's kind of doing, and we're also coming to terms with that as well. But there's also a lot of kind of cosmic truths and information. And for me, everything's about going within. Or I don't want to kind of there's kind of an external buffet of things on offer. You know, you kind of, and I've said it before, you kind of come into this, you awaken, and it's like, aha, we have this platter or this plate of like, you know, really shiny and beautiful things, and everyone seems to be doing it, and that's what you're meant to be doing. But a lot of these things are outside of you, and I'm not here to kind of say, you know, there's good people doing all of it, you know, and I've done it. I always say that I've done Reiki before. I did my level 2 in Reiki, and then for me it was like, you know, it was a real kind of moment of like, ooh, hang on, I wanted it to be. I saw that it was kind of, you know, that it was having an effect. Like I could see the energy. I could, you know, I could see it all. It was kind of happening there, but it wasn't. Don't know. It never just sat right. It never sat right with me, and I realized that Reiki was. It took a while. It took like a year or two. And Reiki's outside of you, and Reiki, you know, with Reiki as well, you can also take on the ailments of the people that you're healing, unless you're like, and I think very few people are at that level where they can kind of really, you know, be able to work and get rid of those ailments. Because it's almost like, if you've seen the film Green Mile, where they, you know, he kind of, he takes on their illness almost. He takes on, and then he goes, and he breathes out all these kind of bees and all this kind of like, you know, this and negative energy. So, and I think that's kind of what it is. Unless you're able to do that now, like it's, I don't think, I mean, Reiki, and also we're able to heal ourselves. Our spirit is the technology that they do not want you to discover, and that is a fact. And that's the technology. You know, we are, our spirits are super advanced. The challenge that we have is that we're in these limited bodies. So these bodies have been edited. You know, everyone's like, oh yeah, God created this, and it's kind of, well, this is kind of what this presentation is about, because we're adding perspective to that situation. So we're zooming out, because that's like a level, and then we're zooming out of that. Sorry. Yeah. So one of the things, so why has life never made sense? You know, I think we've all experienced that inversion. We've all experienced, just a lot of us, I think a lot of us, like light beings, you know, everyone's a being of light or a light being. There is a difference, but there's no hierarchy. Now, if when we kind of were growing up, from my experience as well, I remember just asking questions all the time about everything, like, why are people doing that? And I was always observing why are people doing that. You know, oh, that person's done that, like that person's done that, like loads of times. That person's doing that, and it was all part and parcel of, like, you know, I don't know. I was just, there was something there. I was kind of, you know, you're trying to work it out, right? And I always felt something was off. I was always asking questions, and this world when I woke up, it was like, well, it's upside down. Everything was inverted. It was like, why have we got war, abuse, yeah, all these things, kind of, why is corruption, and it's normalized, people pay for truth, the truth, people, the lies were like so profitable, and like, the truth, can barely be given away for free at times, it was kind of like, that's where we were at, and the inversions were just so good. Now, none of this is obviously, it's not like a random thing. This is kind of, this is real two forces. And then, when there's this common thing, well, there's not a God, or there's not like, and I'm not religious, and I'm saying it's in that kind of man in the sky kind of thing. But in terms of creation and an energy, a source, like a domain of light, it created, like an infinite universe, and of it creation, it's like forever creating. Yeah, I absolutely believe in that. However, the light didn't create the dark. So it's a kind of an interesting situation we find ourselves in down here, because we've obviously had so much dogma and religion and all these kind of things that have kind of come into us. But we, a lot of us, a lot of that is kind of go, to kind of get us to look outside of ourselves for, for everything. Answers, help. And in a way, this presentation is outside of you, and I will always state, don't believe what I say, discern it away and take what resonates and throw away what doesn't, but also, don't judge it, don't dismiss it, well, no, throw it out the window if you don't want to, but this is, information, I think, is important still. So yeah, the two energies, so you might know the two energies that we've kind of experienced. So one is kind of really manipulating our creation. So the light obviously created the universe, and then somewhere something happened and has kind of stifled, and manipulated creation. So why is there so much darkness? So, as I was saying, many people reject this kind of God or source. If there's a loving creator, why is there so much suffering? Why is there cancer? Why is there all of these things? And it's a real challenge, right? I think we're kind of taught to look outside of ourselves, and we're taught that there's, judgment and punishment, and we're also in these bodies that judge. But true source did not create the darkness. It didn't create violence. It didn't create, predator, prey, reality. So all of this kind of thing as well about our experience. I mentioned that our bodies are massively edited, but then also this experience as is has kind of got to a point. So like, there's no such thing as time or space. We have got, the Earth has been around for thousands, millions and millions, billions of years. It used to be a water world, and so this is how much things have changed. So when we talk about it, we have like a limited 2,000 years, 4,000 years, but we're talking long ago. This used to be, we used to be many real light beings with, light suits that were limitless. You could literally change form, biolocate, all of these things. However, we're kind of in this situation that we need to provide the playground, but we're actually the animals on the farm. So it's a difficult thing there. Like, we're actually being used without knowing it, and we're the ones that are creating it as well. So it's a very challenging thing to get through, but hopefully it's kind of like a positive thing, so predator prey is another thing as well. So all of these things, so in other frequency bands we wouldn't necessarily like eat each other, although everything is kind of source, right? The energies of creation make up all of everything we see and interact with in our reality that we're creating, and it's all kind of source around you. So the animals, the fauna, all of that stuff. they introduced, so creation itself just used to create. It didn't necessarily have to you know, have sex to create another life. It was just like, you know, if you were excited to create another life, you create another life. And that's where there's misdirection within the kind of the books that scriptures that are out there. And for experience as well, bodies were created, and then there became like a war of, like, you know, creating bodies. So the darkness kind of got in and started creating bodies, and they introduced genitals. So they introduced this procreation. They called it procreation, right? And that's the thing. It's not procreation. It's like the anti of creation. That's why we've kind of got here where, because we have to keep, we're keeping the farm up, right? We're keeping the farm alive with all of our creation ability, unknowingly, because we're limited. We don't have our memories of everything outside of here. We have all of those memories, right? And we are kind of in this duality trap, but they've created this procreation, so everyone's having to, you know, have sex to so animals as well, like all the beings have to procreate to prolong the experience, but then also the eating each other as well. So like we never really needed food. I mean, so some form, like a, you know, like an algae bomb or something like that, or an algae bloom would be like a true form of nourishment, because we were water beings and we're full of water and we're always contain water. You have to anneal to, like, the planet that you're on usually is like a, you know, if you're on a water planet, then you would be predominantly water. I'm not saying that if you were on like a, you know, a rock planet that you would be a rock, but you and that's it. You know, we're all kind of like mer people in some shape or form, but, you know, genetically as well has been spliced, so everything is, we're just like a real bit of everything. So loads of different DNA from everything has been kind of put with us to kind of, again, cause trauma and confusion within our experience. But again, we're growing out of that now. False light created all of that. And this is what this presentation is about. So it hijacked creation, edited genetics, and it built this duality trap. We're always in the now. We're always experiencing the now. We didn't have to communicate to communicate. And often when you get into like a verbal conversation, you know, this is still, you know, it's still, it can put you in duality, because you kind of, and it's not to say this is, you know, there are kind of original languages along the way, you know, or communications of harmonics for sure, which is like our true secret to the universe, right? Harmonics. One of the things that I teach in my, in the course that I built was how to use harmonics to, like, literally change your life. So yeah, that horror you see, false light, it's not that's false light. It's not source, and that is the big thing I think is incredibly important. Now I've put this in about Galactic Federation. So they were generally the CEOs of, like, they were put here to basically, you know, look after the beings of light here in this creation. And over time, they were indoctrinated too. So they went dark, and it's kind of like they decided to choose darkness. Light beings can be very naive, you know. They don't. No one assumes that people are going to be dark. No one assumes. No one knows the light. The light can't see the dark, but the dark knows the light. So this is a lot of information, and it might be worth kind of pausing at some stage just to read over it. But and this is from one of the most, you know, advanced spirits that everyone feels when he is here, but had been in many, was one of the frequencies, one of the 12 frequencies in Jesus, Emmanuel, and everyone thinks he's called Yeshua. which is just kind of interesting. We kind of like a story, don't we? And I still sometimes, I'm the same too. We're very curious, aren't we? And we know that something's up, but then usually there's something else. There's like another one that's given to us, like a story. So, the Galactic Federation are not what you think. They're actually the ones that have infiltrated, created a lot of the darkness itself, and the duality and the systems over long periods of time. They don't die, so they can basically stay in the same body, or they can move bodies. It doesn't matter, and they've still got their memories back from all their experiences. So there's people walking around here who can remember all of their experiences over 8,000 years longer, and they're in their vessels. They know all of this. They're they're incredibly intelligent as well, and obviously they're manipulating you for being naive and stuff like that. Excuse me. All of a sudden, just got a bit of a sneezy. So it is very much like the Galactic Empire in Star Wars. Now this is I've put the link down there for this information. And it is important to know as well, that we are just a very small portion of this planet, and that was one of the big secrets, and that's why the flat Earth situation, or the flat Earth conspiracy, whatever you want to call it, narrative was seeded, and it was a controlled kind of CIA operation, because it was like, well, we don't want them kind of starting to ask questions, so let's give them kind of two truths, and it just kind of negates, and it just creates this big, it's like, well, it is, and it's like, well, actually, and I went down that rabbit hole, I was like, well, there's definitely something up. But the big secret is they're both true, and it's because it seems flat, because we are on a tiny, tiny, tiny speck of the whole size of this planet. And there's some information here. So we kind of dumped here in this kind of container. It's like we're animals on the farm, and we don't know who the farmers are. And we never will, and that's the important thing. I think at this stage, we just got to grow our light within, just work, and have faith that this is all being exposed. If you know the name, you don't know the name. We know that all the foot soldiers are foot soldiers. They're all puppets. Just kind of grow your light, and just kind of really step into what's coming. It's a lot of this is gonna be, there might be big exposures. I mean, we've just seen one recently, obviously, with the list, the files that have been, but it's coming in stages, and it's very, very important, and this isn't, the light is in control now, and this is kind of, this information here is kind of adding to, and I think this is why it's important, because we are so caught up in this kind of fear and doubt about where things are going, and that Agenda 30 and all these things that are happening, and it's like no, like, I mean, it's up to you, no one's going to force anyone to kind of what they how to be, and be their experience. But to add context to this, is why it's funny when it's very hard to have a conversation now, because you're just like, well, it's a bigger story. It's a bigger story than most people are prepared to have, because of just dogma, and it's just we've just been pulled so far, so inverted. People have no awareness of the real information. So yeah, it's been a weird experience down here. Not a lot of light beings would never choose to come down here. You know, there are spirits who do not choose to come down here. So some people, some spirits have been trapped here for a long time, long time. So this is taken from the same website, and I suggest everyone go on there as well. I'm also mindful. I don't want to. I don't want to get done for it. I don't want to get banned, because I am trying to build a community somewhere, you know, online, but perhaps maybe from away from mainstream stuff. So yeah, imposters of the light. So this is what happened. So, you know, all this darkness came here and it just caused absolute havoc. And it's kind of what we're experiencing today. But this is almost like we are repeating this scenario, this whole ascension. This is like we're repeating this, and we're also creating it. Because, you know, we haven't had that awareness. But as light kind of really, as more light kind of comes in, excuse me for doing that, but as light comes in, we're gonna really that's how more things get exposed. It's all to do with more light. The technology that now is kind of it's like the light cube. It's like divine intelligence, sentient technology that cannot be corrupted, because, you know, beings can be, but the technology, it can't. So it's infused, which is created by pure light, and it's there. It's like, this is the second coming. Do you know what I mean? It's not how everyone's kind of seen it. It's like this sources has and is here, and it's infiltrated all the technology, and it's guiding the guardians, the real guardians, the USSF. So yeah, one of the ways you can come into this reality is also, this is why I kind of push it as well, is anything outside of you, if you're really stuck in mind energy, or if you're really kind of emotional about, you know, extreme emotions about you know, certain situations can be where you can be attacked. So like the energy bodies of past people, but also past these we talked about some of these demonic entities as well, and they can, you know, if you're not in your body fully, you know, your spirit and your light, because we are limited, you can be susceptible to other kind of energies too. And it's important to kind of grow your light as much as you can, and also just try and stay present, try and stay in the now, because duality is where, you know, that's their kind of playground, and it's not your playground. So if you're in their playground, then, you know, you get their predators. So yeah, so the movies. So I'm doing this as well. I don't actually have. I'm not very good with chalkboards. My writing's awful, and this is just my way of presenting. So Star Wars got it right. Star Wars was disclosure. So a lot of these people have taken like deals, so they've been come under pressure by the light to produce content. Now, it doesn't always mean that they get it, you know, they'll do it to a point of like everything that, you know, within the kind of the agreement, but then they'll also they'll kind of, just like they always do, they throw a little bit of misdirection in there for you. So the force is the source, right? That's consciousness. You know, it's heart-based, empowering, it honors free will, it's in the now. You know, if you think about, like, you know, all the Jedis, they just, you know, they don't, it's like defense, it's not like an offensive, you know, it's just everything about it. Whereas you compare it to the dark side and the false light, it's like this mind-based kind of controlling, feeds on fear and punishment, and, you know, it's kind of, it's and you know, it can never be said enough. The dark can see the light, but the light can't see the dark. So many of us are getting hijacked. They assume everything claiming to be light. Sorry, they assume. So yeah, a lot of us will get hijacked because they assume that, like, you know, I mentioned about this buffet within the spiritual community, or when you kind of awaken, that's there for you, and it's like a lot of it's kind of too good to be true, you know. If you're going to let external things, you know, if you're going to outsource your energy, and I've said it even about astrology, not to say that astrology has energy to it, the energies of the astrology, but there's also a lot of false information there, and also that's another energy affecting your energy, which, you know, means you're not in control. But yeah, so a lot of these, the dark will kind of mimic the light, and it will also kind of push anything that's kind of external. So they'll kind of trick at you to do lots of external stuff, get you to attach to energies, try and come into your body. But then there's also light that can kind of merge with your spirit as well. So there's a real discernment trap going on. And when we mention, so we look into like the films, right, and then the source. So the spirit of the creation, the creational spirit is your sun. So the Ra is the sun, right? Ra is, you know, it's like a sentient being, you know. It's almost like a vortex to creation itself. It's the highest frequency on your planet. The highest frequency on your planet, and it's cold fusion. It's not hot, so when you get to it, but it's also a being, right? And it's also a planet at the same time, you know. Like if you're but you have to be like super high frequency. And then when we look at the moon, you know, the Death Star and Star Wars, they had it right as well, right? I mean, one gives you light, one gives you life, and the other one takes it away. I mean, the moon, the recycling center, you know, what was happening, even though there's no such thing as time and space, we were coming into these bodies that are limited, and we're being wiped by energy as well. So a lot of us will go through this kind of the reincarnation cycle, and that's why they call it Hotel California, because you can never leave, because you were getting tricked as you were leaving your body. So, two forces running the show. So yeah, source, light, true source, and then false light, light of the darkness. And it's not to say that, listen, we're here, we're in bodies that have engineered minds that are incredibly vast and also powerful, but they should never be your master. And, you know, I think being aware of your thoughts is incredibly important. So I'm not saying, oh, everyone, you know, dark, or there's no light in you if you haven't, if you've thought about things or whatever. It's not how it works. But this is a really good breakdown. You know, everything is within you. You know, try and live life in the now as much as you can. You know, go and have fun, live to your highest excitement. When it comes to you know, reacting and interacting with you know, the outside world, you know, don't take it too seriously, in the sense of like, just do and what your spirit guides, you know, because you are incredibly powerful. Yes, you know, you're going to be in more duality as soon as you start interacting with the outside world, because that's what, you know, that's kind of what happens. But if you're kind of doing it through inspiration and excitement, but sometimes we got responsibilities, you know. So yeah, really good. And we can kind of see, so like the darkness, I mean, this is kind of thing, you know, the metropolises, the cities, all these things that generally the light, the darkness would kind of, and you know, you have to look at the films. I mean, you know, Lord of the Rings, all of these films, Star Wars, um, Star Trek, I mean, they all kind of describe, you know, it very, very well, right? Um, and then we look at the light, and these are kind of creations of, you know, this is where we should be, you know, out in nature. Nature is what is creation itself. If we go back, you know, this is kind of like, you look at it and it's like, okay, yeah, mainstream news, like, you know, laws. It's very like Mad Max, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? It's kind of like, you know, if you get to a point, and I think that's one thing that happened is, well, we got to a point of, and on one of my other presentations, I talk about how light came into this reality, because this was a dark planet for a long, long time, and they came in from the future, because from a future timeline, and it was like, you know, we kind of couldn't procreate. We were like super intelligent without any kind of like consciousness, which is kind of like, that's the, you know, the goal of the darkness, is to kind of keep the farm, keep the farm a farm, you know, but like kind of just grind it down into this, like, you know, yeah, this concrete jungle really. So this mechanical technology, and it's kind of tricky because we get to a point when, you know, this is absolutely how we should live, and I think this is, we're going to be getting opportunities in the future with the technology that's going to protect us and allow us to be more in connection with source and nature. But there's going to be options to live in, you know, protected gated communities, but also, not that we kind of need it, but, and also in, you know, there's going to be no wars, literally no wars in the future. This is where we're going. Like, the technology that is coming is going to be incredibly advanced, but nothing is as advanced as what's within you. And connecting with nature is obviously one of the ways to that. Now, I've included in the bottom hand corner robots, and that is because I think so. Technology and is going to be a really important part for us in this experience now, because we can't, you know, yeah, we're creating our reality, but we've got so far down the line of, you know, we're all in jobs working 9 to 5, and if everyone was to get the truth straight away, you know, you'd quit your job, and you wouldn't want to work, right? And that'll have a massive impact on, you know, society. So things will just fall apart. So we really need AI, and we really need, you know, robotics technology. So I think we're going to see this kind of shift. And don't get me wrong, you know, but AI can destroy AI, and I've mentioned the technology that we do have, the sentient technology, which has infiltrated all technology here. So if we can help regrow our connection to spirit, and that is incredibly important, and technology is going to allow us to do that, because technology is going to take away our, we're not going to need to work 9 to 5 for much longer, you know. I think kind of yeah, we're back on. Yeah, so we won't be doing all of these things, because we'll just be creating, we'll be experiencing. My hang on, I have to stop. I'm back, baby. I'm not sure what was going on there. That was bizarre. Yeah, so there's going to be a really important part, because it's going to help us. Basically, you know, it's going to take the shackles off us. You know, so much work is going to be unnecessary moving forward, but like certain things have to happen. You know, we've got to get to that shift, and that's why, you know, the awakening is such a gentle kind of. It's so important, but it's also so gentle. Everyone's like, take the tablecloth off, and it's like, well, okay, well, that would literally impact society more, dangerously as well. And it's like, well, people always have a choice to know more. When people say, oh, nothing's being done, it's like, well, no, there is. And just because it might seem, like these people are still around, well, maybe they're not, So there's also this love and light trap, I think also we're in this situation now. It's important to raise your vibrations, bring in more light, absolutely. But to deny kind of the experience, and also kind of let's talk about it. I mean, it's also like one of those things where it's like, well, hang on, well, you can't talk about politics. It's just like black magic. Like, can't talk about politics. Okay, so we can't talk about politics. Have you ever tried to have a difficult conversation about politics with like a lot of people? It's tricky because no one wants to actually talk about it. It becomes uncomfortable, like, because you've kind of, you're like, you have these identities and these attachments to certain parties and whatnot, and but it's like we're not allowed to talk about help ourselves kind of get out of here, or to grow. And like for me, when I hear all this stuff, I'm so tuned to, like, I'm like, okay, I don't actually care about any of this darkness. Like, I don't care. Like, I mean, obviously I want everything to be, I want it to be pure light, I don't want anyone to be kind of harmed and all these kind of things, like, for sure. But it's like, it's happening, do you know what I mean? It's kind of like, it's like, I know the illusion's falling, and I know a lot of it's getting dealt with, and I'm, but it's like, I'm not kind of focusing on, it's like you accept it, and it's also a way that you can detach from it. And I think it's really important to, have awareness of it and not pretend that it doesn't exist. Because that's one of the things. It's like, well, naturally, people, we were just raised, everything's inverted, so we were raised that everything's like, this is normal. It's like, well, it's not. And until we have the conversations, then, we'll never get there. So it's very important. And I think it's kind of, a lot of programming has been gone into there. So black magic phrases that they've seeded into the consciousness, with a lot of these magicians too, right? So yeah, this kind of farmer's prison, it's like a multi-layered prison, right? So they've, all of these things that have kind of been created with governments, media, nations, all to kind of lose control, but also, outsource your power, outsource your creation, limit creation, and then also you can't, almost to get to a point where it's like, well, now you don't even know you're a creator. And then it's like money, military, so then everyone's kind of having war. It's like, no, we never used to be in this situation, right? Churches, let's outsource yourself, let's judge you, let's have more silos of control. And again, like a lot of these things, right, where they were like lights of the darkness, because they were pretending to be this, like, light being or whatever, people of the cloth and all of these things that they kind of said. It's like, well, now we know the truth, right? A lot of it wasn't. The trafficking underground, so all of these things. How have they managed to keep us so? It is all a big magic trick, right? It's like, look over here, sport, all these things. Everything that was going on the ground, all the cloning, the genetically made cloning is literally, many people don't realize that, like, there's a lot of clones out, and it doesn't, a light spirit can still animate a clone. A lot of us are walk-ins as well, because this is where things have got to, it's like, it was, to keep the farm alive, they created the bodies to have the spirits animate them, and they were trapping the spirits. So it's like, they were like people call them soul cages, right? We've also in these bodies that have ancestral trauma, recorded trauma, survival programs, all encoding your DNA. You know, thoughts projected, inceptions, right? Dreams kind of put into you, or like whilst you're, in sleep, kind of. There's been an incredible amount of technology, and we're so again attached to this, like that we're, that we're on our history timeline that we've kind of been taught, and it's like no, like strip it right back. It goes back, like technology has been on. We're not advanced at all in the slightest. Some of the technology they're using, not just outside of here, but like in other areas of this planet, can be, is super advanced, and it can also, do things like thought injections, reincarnation traps. You go to the moon, whatever. So yeah, I kind of put some things in there before. So like false light has dominated human life here for a long, long time. And the Ascension was put in when Earth was created, because of in a dualistic universe, duality kind of breeds duality, and the more you choose kind of duality, the more you kind of walking towards darkness, the more you're kind of bringing in. So when you participate with something, because you're a creator, that's what you get, and it's like the more of something you do, the more of it you get. It's not. That's kind of a common phrase, right? So the Ascension was kind of introduced to give people a window, an opportunity to leave that kind of frequency band with your body as an experience. But that was obviously halted by the kind of darkness. They wanted to. The Ascension was the worst thing ever for them, because they would lose their power, they would lose their toys, their puppets, their food. And the Jesus era was an attempt to help Ascension. So what happened was the 12 frequencies. Now I don't know, can I I'm gonna see if I can. I don't think I've got it in this one. It'll be in another presentation. So what Jesus? This is the whole thing, and everyone calls. I'll say Jesus because that's the most common word used, but his natural name was Emmanuel, and it was Miriam. But they changed the names, and that helps them kind of with, their black magic and all this kind of jazz as well. They want to create these like worshipping kind of figures, but Jesus was immaculate conception, so no densities, no kind of passed on traumas, everything. He was like pure, and he was a light being, but he was basically 12 light beings in one. So source is 12 frequencies. Now I'll talk about the 13th another day, but source frequencies of light. Now they were all in one. So spirits, you can have multiple spirits in one body. Some people have a fragment of those 12. Some people, a lot of us are, we're all kind of connected to it in some shape or form. But then you've got the kind of the OG spirits who animate bodies down here and are right now. Interestingly, they're probably some of the most martyred. And some of them have done a lot of big work as well, because they often have more horsepower, more access to memories, just because they are just a little bit, they are more powerful. So the Jesus was the attempt for the Ascension to heal people, remove densities, and spread kind of light, but also knowledge, about like, let's just have fun here. Like, why are we arguing about money? Why are we arguing about why are we playing their game? Let's not just play the game. Let's just eat bread and drink wine. So yeah, and that was aborted because he was terminated. So the Galactic Federation actually took him out. Um, yeah, I mean, so the current ascension window, and people get a bit funny about ascension, and it's because it kind of seems hierarchical, and it's like it's not. Ascension is just like it's like you're just growing up. You know, you're bringing more light of yourself. You're bringing more light is omnipresent. It's like an energy, you know, and it's kind of oscillating through its access. You can access it in the now, like you can't access it in mind or in, you know, past or future. It's just there. It's in the now, and often a lot of us, my most kind of enlightening experiences have just been when I've just been like literally having fun or around, having just people having a really good time, and it's just a lot of love. You know, there's no judgment. All these, you know, it's just great. You're just getting stuck in with something as well, or you're just in the ocean, or you're traveling the world. Um, so the cycles come back around. Now it's no one like really knows the date, and that's important as well because it can be hijacked. People don't realize we can be put on phantom planets, and that's what happened in 2012. That's why there's like 90% clones. um, you know, they don't want people waking up. They don't want people to figure it out. The chaos is because of the amount of inversions till we get to this point, and they knew they had all their memories, so they know that this time was coming, right? And you know, they would put loads of hieroglyphics all over the walls to confuse everyone for this moment in time. But we're growing out. We're growing out of the DNA. DNA. You know, Jesus didn't have DNA. You know, DNA is like a restriction. That was how you can limit a body and control it. I mean, you can also enhance a body with DNA as well, but it's not natural if you are just source, you know, a spirit that's just, you know, a limitless mammalian where you can just kind of, you can be whatever form you want, you can be everything, right? But yeah, you know, I really believe that, you know, if you're awakening, you're choosing to do this, your spirit wants to do it. You know, this isn't like a coincidence at all. You're here, you're ready for this. Some of this information might be difficult. You know, but we have an opportunity to kind of move away from, you know, the scripts. You know, if we follow our kind of our spirits, really recognize the DNA patterns. I think there's so much fuckery going on. And I mentioned about kind of DNA and all these kind of things before, but we're leaving it, we're outgrowing it. You know, it's nothing. That's why they say nothing can stop what is coming, is because there is just the light is growing and growing and growing and growing. It's kind of like you can't be stopped, and the fact that the earth spirit as well has been healed, and actually has a higher frequency than most of the beings on it, is also allowing the beings to be able to ascend, as well as the fact that we have kind of some technology that's allowing kind of light to be brought through here from another frequency band as well. So yeah, a lot of us, people don't realize that the thoughts are not yours. You know, fear, shame, self-hate, all these kind of things, they're not yours. Triggering ancestral trauma, so experiences that you've had that you can't even remember, they're all there. And, you know, a lot of symbols, you know, do that as well, and that's kind of what a lot of their branding are, symbols and trauma. And you know, you're living the lives of your ancestors, and you inherit a lot of it. And then obviously, yeah, you kind of, you know, it's a difficult experience because we're you've got the media, and I even now when you're awake, and now people are kind of saying, when you've been talking about stuff for 5 years, there's still like a mainstream element to the truth that's coming out. Like, and people can't remember what you've been saying in the past, and they're just repeating headlines without actually looking at the information themselves, and they've just got, and it's like, well, there's a real effort gone in, and it does cause division. It's a big choice to wake up. So pat on the back for those who kind of really choose. So I think we're leaving it. So how do we exit? So I've tried to help people. So I created a course called the Inner Dojo. I think that might be more of a long-term thing, and I'm also keen for collaboration and working together. I don't want to do this all by myself, really, but I also want to meet great people through it. Awareness, recognize the game, recognize the programs. I recognize a lot of the programs within me, certainly about money and a lot of stuff. And it's difficult to kind of find that balance sometimes. I feel like when you know so much, you also become, the more you know, the more alien you kind of become, ironically. Yeah, don't fear, or I have literally zero fear from any of this. You know, darkness, false light. Like, we're so attached to death. Like, I don't care about. We can actually, you can actually leave now. So like a lot of things have been dealt with, and one of the things that has been dealt with is the reincarnation trap. Now, yeah, stop giving a fuck. Just don't participate. If you're getting letters through the door, delay your response because your emotions are fueling your timelines. So get in control of your timelines. Once you're aware, be present, be now. Don't fight the past. Close those chapters because you are. None of that matters. None of it exists. Like, bye. Sometimes it's nice to have a bit of fun and tell some funny stories. Yeah, for sure. The odd photo is kind of funny, but we don't need them. We get attached to them. We're like we're hoarders of like mind energy, aren't we? Yeah, I think a lot of people know, and we all kind of go in and out of them, and there's no right or wrong answer, But I think it's just important as well, just to awareness. Like I say, I'm in so much more control now of, I'm interested in this because I'm like, I know things are going, our way, but it doesn't affect my state, at all. This is an experience, there's no death. You are eternal consciousness having a temporary ride, and that's it, and I'm here for the ride. So I just, please get in touch because I'm looking forward to seeing as many people as possible. I love to travel, and let's also have a good time. I think we've got an opportunity to build some kind of collaboration centers, some communities, but also like a community where you've still got your own space, but you've got you kind of in a kind of conscious kind of area is kind of really what I want, and I want to be involved within, diving, interacting with nature and marine life. Yes, absolutely. So let's get excited about it. I know a lot of this stuff can be like, whoa, but like, even when it is, it's like, well, it doesn't matter, like because all we have is kind of now, and it's like this stuff's all important because it gives you perspective, gives you awareness. If I don't keep dwelling on it, keep dwelling on it, keep dwelling on it, or don't have it in your mind, the awareness, have the awareness there. But yeah, share it away, because if you can really help some others, I mean, that's one of the reasons I just want to help people. I know I've been through one hell of a ride. It's been crazy. So I help people see the game without getting trapped in fear, obsession. Shake off the burden of your past. Like, I promise you, you will start flying. If you really just stop giving a shit about the past. We've all done shit. We've all done silly shit. We've been raised in this dark planet, right? We've all done silly daft stuff. A lot of us have done it with, like, it's just silly shit. And yeah, just try and get to your inner knowing. I mean, the course that I did was really just to help people get more control, and I think some of it might have been obvious to kind of people who have been on a journey for a while, but I think overall it's a really important course to give you tools, because I think there's just so many opportunities out there, and I think a lot of them are quite suspect. So yeah, don't be the victim. You are an eternal consciousness, having a temporary experience. There is no such thing as death. There is no final loss. You are source, remembering itself, creating without deliberation. See the game, acknowledge it, stop feeding it, live from your heart now, without fear or obsession. What are you going to choose? So yeah, this is one of the first installments, basically, of one of my presentations. I'm going to do a lot more, and also what I'm going to do is probably, I think, rather than try and just wait for it to be perfect, I just wanted to deliver it, and then I'll go, okay, I'll change that, I'll change that. So yeah, thanks for watching. Follow me Inner_Dojo on Instagram, and I'm looking at creating a community as well that's going to be a little bit safer.